Welcome to today's show. I'm Robbie English.
And I am Carrie Sietsema. Today's show is focused on the reality of television real estate shows, or should I say, some of the non reality aspects of these reality shows.
Yeah, Carrie, it's really kind of crazy how real estate shows have continued to take off in this whole reality TV spectrum. I mean, across the globe, we've got show types like that journey through the home buying experience with
Yes.
their clients. There's some new inspector shows that are kicking in, and a ton of renovation shows.
Ton of renovation
Ton
shows.
of
I think a
renovation
lot of
shows.
people love the renovation shows.
I kind of get into some of those renovation shows. I can't help it. Just I think this weekend I actually had one of them on for a couple of hours before I kind of caught myself. But the
Nice.
ones that I can't watch are those agent drama shows that are just focused on the drama. It's the agent of this and this and this. But it doesn't really matter because those storylines are just that, storylines. And they don't always reflect what happens in real life. Well, that is real life in Texas, at least, because there's some crazy stuff that goes on some of these shows.
That's right. There is some crazy stuff that goes on in some of these shows.
Some of them are the home buying shows. Have you ever watched one of those, Carrie?
I have, yes. I was actually watching a few of those this weekend, and they were really interesting. I actually enjoyed watching them, but like a lot of the reality shows, it wasn't 100% reality. It was definitely a TV version of reality.
Which style is your favorite that you watched?
Mm, I like the ones where it showed the buyers and the real estate agents just going through the process and looking at different homes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, did any of those, kind of portray a little bit of a home buying experience that probably just was a couple of homes, maybe three?
yeah, yeah. So I did notice that in one of the shows I was watching, one of the big things is they would kind of sit down and do the consultation with the real estate agent, but then they would only show them three homes. And these buyers were left to make a decision from just those three properties, or at least it looked like they were making a decision from just those three homes. And that really doesn't reflect the way that it actually works with the home buying process.
Yeah, I've had very few clients that I haven't actually shown a number. I'm not talking great number. I've only had one that we looked at like 40, and I think out of all of them, they looked at like 100 homes. But usually it's around, the 9, 10 number. But I think it was Brandy Snowden with the National Association of Realtors. I think she's the director of member and consumer survey research, where she actually talks about the average number of homes that a person will look at is 10, but that doesn't count all the numbers that they look at online, because it takes a lot just to kind of pick that one.
Yeah,
So
and with such an important decision, I mean, I really cannot even imagine taking someone out and saying, these are your three choices. It's one, two, or three. I mean, I want them to be able to choose from a whole variety of different homes and kind of narrow down what they want and what they need.
yeah, because they learn along the way. What's that one thing you like looking for a buyer? I mean, okay, mine. I just have to tell you right out of the gate. Mine is when you kind of you see that little smile crest, and you can see the wheels turning in their head, that they have like they're placing their furniture. That's
Yes,
like my favorite things.
I really enjoy that too. I was actually out touring some homes this weekend, and the people I was touring with started looking around and saying, well, this is going to be this person's room, and oh, we could put this here, and oh, this would be, this backyard would be perfect for this. And I just kind of saw like that light go off above their heads, like, wow, we could really see ourselves in this home.
Yeah, and excuse me, I think the world of security cameras is limiting a lot of that, or what we're having to deal with and stuff. But
Sure.
really, it is nice when we have a safe space that they can get excited about and start thinking about placement and kind of walk off steps or measure furniture. I had one client that um, she had this huge, I guess it was an entertainment center that we were actually trying to find a place in a house for it.
Yeah.
And so we went through all these houses, and if it didn't have a space that was big enough for this long entertainment center, the house was out. So we missed a bunch of great houses. Then their current home burned, and that piece of furniture burned. So it kind of threw out a whole bunch of houses that we didn't need to. But hey, there are all different kinds of things that people like to look for when they're out looking for houses.
Yeah, so true. So true.
So, in these shows, have you seen any terms of or catchphrases that kind of get under your skin a little bit?
Yes. So there was actually one that popped up a few times on a few different shows. And that was real estate agents referring to a specific home as a bachelor pad. And
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a questionable one right there.
yeah, it definitely sent up some red flags in my mind when I heard that. In 1995, I know that HUD said that it was an okay term, but I understand that there has been some revision of that since then.
Yeah, it was back in 2015 where the term was used in an ad, and it was challenged in the court system, and litigation was filed, and the jury found that it did violate the fair housing laws, since it did not violate, excuse me, let me take that back, that it didn't violate the fair housing law because they could not show that there were damages, that the people involved were damaged. And there was an appeal filed where they went in and tried to prove it up again, but the case was denied because they felt like there was no evidence that people had really complained about that ad wording. But it was still really kind of, questionable because it is discriminatory, but then there wasn't a court case. So it kind of threw it into that abyss place.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I know that you and I have talked in the past about it even being one of those extreme cautionary words,
Mhm.
stay away from bachelor and bachelor pad, just to,
Yeah.
refrain from using them altogether.
Yeah, and it makes sense because you could really be doing a disservice to both the buyer and the seller. Because if you're marketing a seller's home as a bachelor pad, then are you cutting out, a huge pool of buyers that might be interested? And then they read that and they think, oh, that's not for us, when it really could be.
Absolutely. And one of the things that, we were talking about in specific today, real reality shows in the real estate world, but regulatory agencies all around are, they have employees that tune into these shows, and they know the rules and the laws. And, it seems like a lot of the reality shows pick, there's some that they don't, but there are some that pick, some agents that it's like they could script a little bit more. But, they're always watching. I know in Texas, we've had a couple of agents on shows that have gotten busted for different things. So we have to be really, really careful about what we're putting out there.
Yeah, very true.
So, anything else that sticks out to you on some of those home buying shows, Carrie?
Yeah, so another thing that I thought actually rang really true that I'd seen on there was the portrayal of the dynamics that occur when you have multiple parties who are involved in the decision-making process on a single home. And I saw a couple of episodes where they sat down and they said, like, here are our needs, here are our wants, here are our deal breakers. But then as they were touring the homes, the two parties that were involved kind of started bickering back and forth and started kind of revising some of those needs and wants. And I thought, wow, that is pretty accurate, because the dynamic there can get really interesting when you're working with two people that are shopping for one home. Sometimes what they're looking for is not necessarily going to match. And it's just an interesting dynamic, helping to lead them through resolving that so that they can find something that works for both of them.
Right. Because, things happen, and it's kind of interesting, I think, on some of those. We talk about a lot about working with a buyer or the group of buyers. Sometimes it is a group of buyers where trying to get them all on the same page right outside of the gate, so that we
Yeah.
kind of know who the main decision makers are, make sure they're present, make sure we know what their wants, needs, and have to haves are, so that we can really kind of jump in and be able to identify, who's making the decision, and that everybody is represented. And I think that's the biggest thing. And sometimes those, husbands or significant others say it doesn't matter, whatever she wants or whatever he wants. And, in those kind of
It does
situations, like,
matter.
okay, sign your name to that because we're going to hold you to it.
Right. And usually you'll find down the line somewhere that, even if it didn't come out at the very beginning, it does actually matter. There can be more factors. And that, that's why it's really important during the process, obviously, for us to listen to what our clients are saying to us, not only what they're saying, but also, what their actions are showing.
Yeah. I couldn't have said that better, actually, because real estate's really a relationship business. And you can find a transactional agent on any street corner, it seems like, where they're just, trying to turn and turn, and they're not building those relationships and really deepening them. And it's really listening to your clients and knowing what they are looking for. And overall, aren't we supposed to be saving them time and effort in the home
Right.
process, so that if we're not actually even doing that, it, we're losing one of those big, huge benefits.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
anything else stick out on some of the ones you watched?
Another one that I noticed that was really a truth that I saw in the reality show was just the wide variety of home features that can be important from person to person. And I mean, it's from little things to big things. I saw one person who wanted specifically their laundry room to be upstairs instead of downstairs. There was another person that was shopping for a wraparound front porch specifically. There was another that wanted a house that had no projects, but they did want a house with a swimming pool.
Right.
Um, Covered porch, a separate tub and shower in the primary suite. I mean, just all of the different variety of things that are important to people in a home, I thought were actually pretty well represented in some of the shows that I was watching.
Yeah, and it's hard depending on the market and the location, what to find sometimes, what they really want that's
True.
available on the market. And I think one of the crazy things that I've read multiple times from credible sources is that a lot of those homes that they're showing aren't even for sale on the market. It's more about the show,
Wow.
less about what's actually available. What about any fallacies? Do you know of any fallacies of all the ones you've ever watched before?
There was a one big one that I caught that I think could be especially misleading and harmful to people that are watching these shows and feeling like they are reality. And that was the things that the buyers were discussing with their agents while they were physically in the house. I mean, they were talking about everything. They were talking about the specifics of their budget, the details of their finances, the highest price that they would be willing to pay, that they had to have a house no matter what, that they do anything to get it. And those are things that I always lead my clients, I say, like, think about them while you're in the house, but tell them to me when we're very far away from the house. Because in this day of, audio recording, video recording, everything, yeah, there are cameras and microphones everywhere. So anything that you're saying could easily be heard by the seller and could really, really hurt you along the line in negotiations.
Absolutely. And, we have certain disclosures here in Texas that we give to clients. And I talk to my clients before we go into homes to do a reminder. Hey, just remember there could be a camera there. So, just kind of watch, and, they're not supposed to be recording,
Right.
but oftentimes they are. And even the Ring doorbells, I tell my sellers,
Yeah.
don't listen to the conversations, turn those off during showings. I understand you've got those cameras for safety, but at the same time, we are, even in a home that is on the market that is being shown, you are supposed to receive a certain level of privacy. And in Texas, you have to be a party to the conversation, I think is the rule, to record. You can't, it's that anti eavesdropping kind of thing. But it is kind of crazy that things that are going on out there and the things that we have to look for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anything else, or is that gonna, kind of be the only thing? These are the hardest home buying shows, are the hardest ones for me to watch, whether it's the agent or what. I'm like, you can't
Yeah.
do that all the time, and I get that little frustration, and it just tenses me up instead of relaxes me.
Right, right. Yeah, those were the main things that I noticed from the home buying shows that I was watching.
Yeah. So, inspector shows have started to kind of jump in and be popular too.
Yeah.
And some of the crazy things about the inspector shows is that, you go find the house, write the contract, they go in and do the inspection, and then they fix everything for you. They do that really detailed inspection and can make all the repairs for you. So it's this super sound house.
Mhm.
Well, not a super sound house in Texas, I'm going to tell you,
Mm-mm.
because we have rules in place that um, our Texas Real Estate Commission is, and they oversee the inspectors as well. And they are in charge of putting in the rules to place and to really make sure everybody's adhering to them that our legislature actually pass. So in Texas, an inspector who cannot agree to make repairs or perform maintenance on a property that they have done an inspection where there's a contract in place or an exchange or even a lease. So the number that I've heard that if an inspector is going to do some of those repairs, to kind of wait from the inspection time to the repair time is right around a year, 12 months. So that's really going to keep some of those people out and away from making those kind of repairs. So the great thing is, if you're looking to buy or you're looking to sell in Texas, you know that the inspector that you're going to hire has rules in place that the state is making sure that are being followed as best they can, and that you're not going to come up with someone who's going to give a wonky inspection to basically just get some more business to make some repairs. And
Right.
we work with some great inspectors who we don't ever have any problems, and our clients love them. But when you've got this big purchase ahead of you and you're thinking about all the things that could go wrong, or what's the really status of the house, or even if you're selling it and the buyer's hired this inspection, how do you know that it's right, or it's just the inspector looking to make some extra money? But we don't really have that worry here, because some of that kind of craziness doesn't happen here, which is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Texas has those protections in place for Texans who are buying and selling homes, because that inspection report can be rough when it comes back, and you have to know that you can really trust the objectivity of the person that's done that inspection, because there's just so much important information in there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's some other rules in there. There's a whole lot of rules that they have to follow. Can you think of another one that's applicable to some of these inspector shows?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about the rule against acting in conflicting capacities for an
Well,
inspector.
that's a
Um,
good one.
yeah,
I'm
which
good
is
with
going to
that.
say that an inspector can't be both an inspector and an undisclosed buyer in a sale, and that they also.
Okay, so are you saying undisclosed buyer, meaning they could inspect their own property if they're listed on the contract?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Which is important because, again, you want them to be objective, and it's going to be hard for them to be objective if they are actually the buyer and you don't know it. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
so it makes perfect sense. The inspector also can't be the inspector and the real estate salesperson.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think is also important.
Yeah, it's kind of like that separation of church and state. You
Yes.
just, if you're gonna be over here being the agent, you don't need to be an inspector too. So what's that saying? Um, what is it? Jack of all trades,
And and
master master of none, I think is what it is.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that whole aspect of pick a side of the boat to row on, pretty much.
Right. And keep that inspector objective, and keep everyone knowing that they're objective, so they can have just that confidence when that inspection report comes back that they can trust it.
Yeah, because you don't really know. As you're a lot of the things that they find we don't normally see with our just naked, untrained eye. So I
Yeah,
can see how that can be a little frustrating, and I know it has been for sellers in the past. They're like, nothing's wrong with my home. What are you talking about? Well, the inspection shows this, so you just kind of
yeah,
have to jump in and kind of play the mediator and stuff because I'm not an inspector. I don't wear that hat too. So
right.
but let's talk about some renovation shows.
Ooh, okay, renovation shows.
Those
Yeah,
are my favorite to watch, and then I've got my favorites. I've got the ones that I don't really like. I've got them that in Texas, we've had some that have kind of caused a little issues and stuff like that. But overall, I get some good style tips from them.
yeah.
I don't like the shiplap and stuff like that, but that's me. What about you?
They're really fun. I really enjoy watching renovation shows. I mean, who doesn't love a good, before and after? It's just so much fun to see the creativity of the designers that come in and, all the different, major and minor upgrades that they can make and just the way that they can transform the space. It's just really there's something really fun about watching that.
Yeah, years ago there was a show, and I can't remember the name, and it doesn't matter anyway, where two friends would swap spaces and design the other space, and I don't know what it was. It pulled me in every time. I couldn't help it. It
Fun.
was a great way to just kind of escape from you know real world matters, I guess.
So much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, any craziness with renovation shows in your mind, Carrie?
I mean, so I think sometimes the people that are recommending the renovations might be throwing out some unrealistic expectations to their clients. For example, you can buy a property for this amount, and you're going to make this crazy number of profit without any risk, and that's really not the case. Um, you can't tell somebody how much profit they're going to make on a
Yeah,
renovation because it might not be accurate. It could be misleading.
yeah. I mean, you're on to a major aspect, and it's crazy that some people actually even do that, because some of them, are saying, hey, it's 1,000% profit for doing this, and it's not actually that way, and we have to be very careful about our promises, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's some crazy things that, basically some of those realtor association studies. Have you read any of those lately or in a while that deal with any kind of thing like this?
I saw one study that indicated that the home renovation shows really are not doing a very good job of educating people as
Right.
to how these things actually go, which I think is unfortunate because, the home renovation process can be so complicated, it can be lengthy, it can be very expensive. And there's a lot of knowledge out there. There are a lot of people that'll tell you what they think you want to hear about a home renovation. And, if you're getting bad information from other sources, that can really make things confusing for people.
Yeah, so you're telling me to listen to the stuff that, like gray is out and it's tan
Right.
back again, and skip all the other stuff about how long it takes, and I don't know, um, what they're going to be able to sell it for later, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and all the work that goes into it. I mean, on these renovation shows, you kind of see the before, you see a little bit of discussion of the process, you might see a little bit of the process, and then you see the after, but you don't see, all those phone calls with contractors and all those, sitting down and making spreadsheets and comparing quotes and pricing materials and all of the different things that actually go into making that renovation happen.
Yeah. I know I've watched one show where they jump in and do that project management of it, and
Oh,
give a
nice.
little bit better portrayal of it. But those shows are few and far between. I don't
Yeah,
think this show's even on the air anymore. So, it's
yeah,
just trying to jump in and know what's going on. Um,
right.
Absolutely. What about hey, you're going to make this amount of money? after all those renovations are complete.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not in any position where we can guarantee a profit to anyone. That goes against, code of ethics. It goes against the law. We can't make any promises about, if you make this renovation, it could result in this amount of profit for a sale down the line. So,
Yeah,
anyone who's on TV making those promises is not necessarily doing right by their clients.
yeah, because we on the streets can't actually do that. Especially, well, let me say we can't do that in Texas,
In
because
Texas, yeah.
Texas we have a truck rule. I think it's out of the Texas Occupations Code 1101.652.17. If you're going to quote me, that does not allow us to. And I know even when I go into a new home construction and meeting with a builder's rep, and they start telling you, oh, you're buying it for this, and you're really going to be able to turn around, and I have to say, wait, you can't promise my client that in my presence because it's not allowable. And it is something that can kind of get dangerous. And we have one of my favorite things that I get asked from agents when I teach nationwide, or even clients, is solar panels. Dude, they showed
Solar.
up, sold me some solar panels, and it told me it's going to give me about 50 or $60,000 of equity, profit, or value was the big word. And appraisers shy away from applying any value to those solar panels. I mean, there's different amounts of wattages, there's whether it's owned or lease, what's the remaining life of the solar panels, and do they
Mhm.
actually do any good? Because this time last year in Texas, those
They were
solar
coming
panels weren't kicking
down.
out anything. When the electric grid went down, they weren't of any benefit. Now, there
Yeah.
is one thing that I think we're gonna see, especially in Texas, and it's gonna be on some of those shows that cover the Texas markets. Those generators.
Generators,
We're gonna have
yes.
to see premium pricing adjustments on our homes for those houses that have those automatic generators that keep you in power. Because a lot of us went to 10 to 14 days last February with no power.
Yeah.
And those solar panels were covered in snow. They weren't doing anybody any good. So, we really have to look at that. But that really makes me think about another rule, or a rule of law in Texas, which has to do with saying the word, using the term, or quoting someone an opinion of value. And our legislature and our Texas Real Estate Commission want to make sure that you, as an agent, and you, as a consumer, understand that a real estate agent cannot state the value of a home. They can give you a sales price, they can give you a list price kind of thing, but the key word is price. And I've trained people for years that if you use the word value, kind of like flip out a little bit, and make sure that you tell your client that basically all I can tell you really is what the sales price is, because the only person who can establish the value is a appraiser
Right.
is licensed and operates under what they call USPAP, which is the Uniform Standard of Appraisal Practice. And I know I'm getting a little too detailed in there, but it's kind of important because, we throw around, everybody wants to know what their home value is. I'm not an appraiser. I can't put
Right.
on my appraiser hat and say, beyond the shadow of a doubt, this is what you're going to get for it. And, I think a lot of agents, forget about that, but consumers really need to know that we can't, and we're not in charge of, what that value is of that home.
Yeah. That's a really important point. A really important point.
Yeah. And I think it's something that people forget.
Yeah.
So, anything else about some of those renovation shows that sticks out to you? I mean,
Yeah, the one other thing that I noticed was that some of the licensed real estate agents on the show were actually having unlicensed people go and show properties or open doors to the properties that they were listing or showing or renovating. And that is a
Huge issue.
major violation.
Yeah,
You have to have your real estate license to even open and get the key out of that lockbox. And that's for security reasons. That's to protect everyone. That's to protect buyers. That's to protect sellers. That's to keep, all the properties that are on the market secure. And I noticed that they were just kind of going around that rule on some of those shows, which is a dangerous thing to do.
absolutely. Do you have I know it's off topic, but do you have a favorite kind of lockbox?
My favorite is absolutely the super lockbox because it
Yeah.
is the most secure.
Yeah. Oh, we're not, sponsored by Super or anything, but why is it your favorite as we're talking about keys and accessing it?
Well, it's my favorite because you have ways to tie into it and track who's accessing it. It's also accessed by an app that is only loaded onto the device that is carried by the licensed realtor. And not only does the realtor need to sign into that device to access it, there's also a secondary PIN code that has to be entered before the Bluetooth lockbox can actually be unlocked. So there are just several levels of security there that work to protect everyone involved.
Yeah, I know in Texas we've had issues where it made it look like they were an agent and they weren't as far as opening the door. And they're very specific about that. And all it is to protect the consumer. That's,
Right.
overall, that's what the licensing boards and regulators are out there doing, is just trying to protect the consumer. So those are also pretty good points. I want to switch gears if you don't mind. I
Okay.
want to switch gears to the agent shows and
Agent
kind of
show.
want to hear from you a lot about this, because overall, these are the shows that are can't watch the most. These really, I mean, this just steal my piece somehow. And,
Yeah.
I've seen several where an agent just flies across the nation to go to another area to just travel, and they can totally represent the client there. And they're not licensed there, but it doesn't matter. And that is so unequivocally false, because if you are a realtor and you have to subscribe to our National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics, um, you have to be licensed in that state to have the knowledge and about the type of property that you're even looking at with that client, and you've got to have access to that information and resources. And I'm not talking just the MLS, I'm talking about really having the necessary, what's going on in the town or city, what's going on in the neighborhood, what's going on in the area overall, to really kind of formulate. I mean, it's that whole, Carrie, it's that whole geographic competency of being familiar with the area that property is located in, that really, those are like part of our code of ethics that have been there forever,
Yeah.
and
So important.
yeah, and that kind of knowledge takes work and years of training and experience. And we don't just get a real estate license and go, boom, we got all of this. We really have to be able to dive in and get a lot of that. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that just drives me nuts about some of these shows. It's just like dramas. I mean, really? You
Yeah. Yeah.
notice anything?
You certainly can't just helicopter into a city and, help someone buy or sell a home. It doesn't work that way.
I'm a baller and I'm walking in and, boom. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Anything that bother you with those shows, or anything you've noticed?
Yeah, yeah. One thing that I noticed was that some of the agents were failing to submit all the offers that they received to their sellers. In other words, another agent would text them like, "Hey, we want to make an offer on this home for X amount of dollars with these terms," and they would say, "No, that's going to be unacceptable to my seller." And that, part of our code of ethics is that we submit all offers, whether we think they're going to be acceptable or not. The seller deserves to have all of the information on the table.
What are you calling all offers?
All offers received verbally, all offers received by email, by text. If somebody sends me a carrier pigeon with an offer tied to the leg, I'm going to unroll that and send that to my seller too.
Yeah, there
Anyone
were
out there who's interested, they deserve to know about it.
Yeah, there was a interesting issue that happened where there was a property manager that was looking for a tenant, and he was only representing the property owner to try and find a tenant.
Mhm.
And another gentleman drove up from the community and said, tell so and so, whoever the owner was, that I want to buy it, and this is the amount of money I want to pay for the property. And the property manager throws their hand up and goes, "Hey, I only represent, looking for a tenant, the property management interests," and didn't ever say anything about that offer. And
Mhm.
the guy who made the offer and the owner actually ended up, having a discussion about it afterwards. And there was a serious issue because we are required to deliver all offers, whether we're handling in that specific, he was a representative for the property owner, and he should have turned around and jumped in and given them that offer. And
Right.
that's a huge thing that we've got to remember.
Yeah. Wow. So important.
Yeah. Anything else kind of stick out about some of these agent shows with you?
Another thing I noticed was about, when somebody's working with a seller and, a buyer's agent is asking them whether or not they have other offers on the home, not being completely honest about that. And that's another part
That's
of
a good.
our, yeah, it's another part of our realtor standard of practice. If we have multiple offers on a home and someone asks if there are other offers, like, we're required to tell them. Just part of
Yeah,
treating people honestly and fairly.
yeah, and people don't really think about that. That I've had agents tell me, I don't have to tell you that. I'm like, actually, yeah, I do. And they get kind of frustrated, and then you don't never know if they're really telling you the truth or not. But you know, that is, um, and that it doesn't matter what kind of offer they've got going, or what kind of contract, does it, or where it is.
No, and I mean, obviously, they're not going to be required to disclose any of the specifics of those offers or those contracts, but the fact that another offer or contract does exist is required knowledge.
Yeah, that wording, I think, is unresolved contingencies, meaning any kind of inspection, option period, any kind of financing thing. It doesn't matter what is out there going on. It's any it. You're supposed to accepted offers and offers including those unresolved contingencies. Those are
Mhm.
some of those big things, and that went into place back in 1986, and I know it was amended back in the
Wow.
early 2000s. So there, if an agent hasn't read their code of ethics, they probably need to, because they can not only get themselves in trouble, but it kind of will help them work with other agents as well, because
Yeah,
that's really a key indicator.
yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things when it comes to agent shows. One of the biggest things that I see that relates and translates back into Texas is, um, what if the agent wants to buy the house? Or what if they go out
Ooh,
and look at a house and they're not looking for a buyer, they're looking for themselves?
that's a good
There,
one.
there's one thing that really kind of catches some agents off guard, and there's been complaints filed, and serious, the Texas Real Estate Commission's come down on some brokerages and agents, all doing with rule, I think it's 535.16c. It's my favorite rule, and I've often said I wanted to get it put on the back of a shirt or something. But basically, what the second part of that rule says is that a license holder, meaning a real estate agent, that is looking for a property, or they basically say in the rule that they're buying, that it's for the license holder's own account, meaning they're buying it for their own use or investment or whatever. As contact made while being a real estate agent, they say we can't ever take our hats off of being real estate agents. But what the situation is, they have to provide to the seller a broker price opinion or a comparative market analysis. And I think most of the agents out there don't realize that, hey, I'm going to buy a property for me. I have to give that other side, that seller, a CMA. And it's got to be accurate. It's got to be one that I would stand up in front of any kind of legal jurisdiction and defend. And so does my broker, because I'm creating all
Mhm.
those CMAs in my broker's name. So what happens if, and this is the big thing that I hear, Carrie, all the time is, but what if they're represented by an agent? It
Mm,
doesn't matter. You're supposed to send it to the other agent. Don't be sending it to the other agent's client. But, you know, we've got to jump in and know the rules, because we get in trouble if we don't, right?
yeah, we get in trouble and we don't serve our clients and our customers in the best way if we don't know those rules because they're all in place for the protection of our clients and our customers.
Absolutely. And it's set into place, to protect that consumer. But if everybody's being transparent and on the up and up, the sellers should know what they've got and how much it's worth,
Hmm.
and they're not being bamboozled with a value that's like 10, 20, 30, thousand or even percent lower than what they could.
Right.
And we make sure they get a signature on that, because I personally am trying to avoid getting a complaint, and those complaints on a national level of in legal claims about incorrect pricing are the most significant claims against license holders and licensees across the nation. That's huge.
Wow. Yeah.
So, sellers may not
Exactly.
agree with the price you're telling them, but you have to give them a good price, right?
Right. Yeah. They deserve to have all the information.
Yeah, and it occurs even when a buyer is buying a piece of property. You give them a CMA or you don't, and then they turn around and think that they've overpaid for it, or the seller feels like that they have been underpaid for it. And especially if you're coming in and you're the agent buying it, ooh, I want to make sure it's all up to date and all legit, because I don't want my ass handed to me at all.
No.
Not at all. So, any other agent show information kind of craziness that you watch and see? Because it's hard for me. I tune them out so much. It's just great.
Yeah, it's been hard for me too. And I guess the only other thing that I've noticed is that just some of like the competition and the fighting between agents on the show, and that's not really how the industry works, and it's not how the industry is meant to function. Whether we're working for different brokerages, the same brokerages, representing competing clients, or clients who are working together, like we all have to cooperate. If I
Right?
don't have a good relationship with the agent across the table from me, it's not going to serve my clients well.
No.
So I think that just this attitude of like just fighting and competition between agents and that we're not working together really wasn't accurate and didn't do the industry the credit that it deserves.
Now, are you saying all your peers are perfect and are on the up and up, and you get along with all of them?
I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but I'm saying everyone has to work together. Like we have to cooperate.
Yeah, we do. There are in every industry. There's some of those bad apples that are out there that make it difficult and stuff, and we have to grin and bear it and smile and stuff. But because we really do have to work together, and if you've done this for any length of time, in or been around real estate in any length of time, we all have to get along because we're going to see each other again,
Right.
and that's huge to me. I think so. I'm with you on that. So, anything else you can think of you really like?
That's everything that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay away from all those egos and everything on some of those shows, because it just kind of gets me.
Right.
But thank y'all for joining us on this venture into the realities of television real estate shows. Be sure and press that subscribe button and turn on those notifications wherever they are, so that you'll know when we go next show. We are going to be live every Monday. Actually, I'm thinking Tuesdays. Every Monday at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time. So look for us next week. Thanks, Carrie.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody.